Okay, so we're going to be discussing Chapter 2, Phase 2, Page 6. We'll start with legal land description. Ready? Okay, let's get going. Okay, so the legal land description is referring to the description that's written out legally for property. So let's think about country properties first. So we're going to think about a country farm or something similar to that. Usually it's going to have one lot number. It's going to be associated with a concession, which is a road basically, and it's in the township of a city and then the county. Okay. Now that's what a legal land description will sound like or look like. You're going to see that related to arranging a mortgage. You're going to see that come up in any of your deed or survey documents too. So you'll see it in those three cases. Now, see how the modern land descriptions were based out of were three different timings. The first one started off as a single front township. That means there's 200 acres. That's generally facing the water, lake, or river. It's consisting of 1 acre lots. So that's 1 acre lots times 200. That's your single front townships. Now, when we look at double front townships, and that was established, like early 1800s, late 1700s, you've got 200 acres with a road dividing it right in the middle. So it's 2 blocks, road right in the middle. And in that case, you've got 200 times 200 half-acre lots. So you've got 200 half-acre lots here, you got a road dividing, and then you got another 200 half-acre lots underneath that road. Okay, so that gives you a total of 200 acres once again. Now, in 1835, they established a sectional township, which is basically, think of it like a big pocket of homes, a big pocket of area, a whole bunch of subdivisions. So imagine it however you can think of 1,000 acres of land. So you're talking about an enormous amount of land. We could even think about like a small or even quarter pocket of Mississauga or Brampton or anywhere else in the GTA. The sectional township is 1,000 acres with many dividing roads, and they're usually divided up into division of lots as well. So you've got kind of like a subdivision, but on a larger scale. Okay. Now, land measurements, that was done in a meets and bounds system. We're going to come back and discuss this with Calvin. Calvin takes care of the mathematical explanation, so he's going to come back and do this with us. So we're going to actually jump right into page 7, into the second, or the first paragraph after the diagram called surveys. Now there is an explanation of surveys to understand so that this makes sense when you write the exam. A surveyor's real property report is basically, in other words, a complete package. Okay? So surveyor's real property report means that you have a survey, which is basically all of your drawings, all of the exact measurements that are right up to par. Okay. And then if there's a certification in the corner by a land surveyor, Ontario land surveyor, you've got a complete surveyor's real property report with that. Okay? So we look at something called a reference plan. Again, this is similar to the first part of the surveyor's real property report. It's basically a diagram of the property. So it's a graphic description. So that means it's a drawing in simple English. So don't mix this up with a registered plan. A registered plan happens at a point of a subdivision, and a reference plan is simply saying it's a graphic description, a drawing. That's what it is, the description of a survey of the land. And you can easily identify properties. Now, a reference plan is really handy if you have a multi-sided property. So sometimes you see like a little L-shaped apartment building or an L-shaped home. That's great for using a reference plan for that scenario. So a plan of survey is exactly what it says. It's actually just a survey. So part 1, again, it's similar to the surveyor's real property report. So, the plan of surveys, it's got part 1, it's got the surveyor's real property report, and 2, again, it's got the certification by the surveyor. So it's kind of repeating itself in a way, but the two in essence are very much the same thing. Okay. Plan of subdivision or registered plan of a subdivision. So let's understand this. So if you were a builder, you buy a piece of land, you've got to do a draft plan. Okay, so the draft plan is going to be how you're trying to plan a subdivision in that city. Then you're going to take it to the city. There's going to be some amendments, some corrections, which will come out to be a final plan. Final plan will be the exact plan that you're going to be building as a builder. Now you've got a registered plan once it gets registered with that city or that municipality. Okay? And they have to approve it, obviously. And the registered plan, just so you know, is prepared by an interior land surveyor, showing the lots, the blocks, parcels, everything is dealt separately. Okay? Now let's talk about severance versus a subdivision. Let's say you have a piece of land yourself. You want to divide it into 2 parts or 3 parts with a family member or friends. That is known as a severance. So 3 parts or less is a severance. You're dividing an existing piece of land by 2 or 3, and that will be a severance. Now, if you typically want to design something that's over 4 parts of division or more, so you want to divide the land into 10, 12, 15, 20 parts, but starting with about 4, typically that is going to be known as a subdivision. Okay? And the reason why we say typically, you'll see some parts of downtown that they'll have very tight locations and they can only build 3 townhomes. Technically, that's a subdivision, even though it's less than 4. But so it says typically 4 based on certain circumstances. All right, so now condominium, I think we understand pretty well. Condominium was covered in our phase 1. Condominium is referring to anything that has common elements. So you're sharing large entrances, a community gatehouse. You're sharing lights, roads that are created for that complex. This can also apply to golf courses, condominiums and golf courses as well. And just so we understand, is a condominium is a registered declaration. So what are we doing? We're declaring it as a condominium. So we're signing documents. We're declaring that this place is going to be a condominium. Now, when we refer to description, that's referring to all of the actual plans, the architectural plans, the floor plans, the unit numbers, the floor design, how everything's being put together. That is a part of the actual description. So the building plan and the layouts and the surveys, those will fall into description. And the declaration is simply you telling the government that this place is going to be a condominium, right? Okay, so now let's look at the road systems. We are on page 8 at the top. Road systems are going to be discussing the King's Highways, this is the 400 series. So the 401, 402, the 410. We've got a few 403. Those are all the King's Highways. Now, just so you understand, with the King's Highways, there's a lot of strict operational obligations that you have to meet if you want to do anything along these highways. If you are looking to erect a sign, advertising, building, a gas station, you need to get the minister's permit in order to do any of these things. If you want to plant a bunch of trees, you have to get a minister's permit. Now, one thing you have to know according to the exam is that they ask you if you can reside near King's Highway or 400 series highway, and they're asking if you can have direct access from your personal property. You can never have that. You will always have to access the existing exits, no matter how close you live to the highway. Okay? So we will be looking at the GIS system. I like to describe the GIS system close to like something like Google Maps, because what it says here is that it is basically creating a sophisticated plan using layers of data and information combined on maps. So it's very similar to something that we would look at today, like Google Maps. Now, these are used by public and private corporations to lower the costs and make better decisions, probably on buying property and looking at close by advantages. Is it by the highway? Is it by this plan? Is it by pollution? Is it by the lake? Who knows? So the present survey system is evolving, and what they want to see happen is the government wants to see the GIS system blend into the survey system so it can become one system. So that's going to take a long time, and you're not going to see that anytime soon. But when it does come to evolve, you'll be seeing that it'll integrate itself and become very sophisticated. It's going to probably remove all the old systems that we're using right now. Okay, so that's a little coverage of revision for Chapter 3. For Chapter 2. And we're going to discuss Chapter 3 minus the means and bounds, which are done by Calvin.